Hi everyone, I'm Karen from the Round Lake Area Public Library, and this is the virtual edition of Lunch and Learn. Today I am going to demonstrate how to make a delicious loaf of rustic bread. If you registered for the program, you should have picked up your kit. If not, your kit is available at the adult reference desk in the library. And in it you will find flour, salt, and yeast. You will need to provide water as well as anything you want to include in your bread. If you did not register for the program and you want to follow along, feel free. I will give you the measurements for what you're going to need as we move along. So let's get started. I'm going to tip my camera down so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to start with a bowl. I do like a glass or ceramic bowl. I think they work best. And I'm going to put my flour into the bowl. So we are using bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content, which gives you a good rise. And that's what I prefer. You can use all-purpose flour, but your bread probably won't rise as much. So we're going to start with 3.5 cups of bread flour. That's 2. And now I buy my bread flour at Costco, so I get it in 10-pound bags. And 10 pounds makes about 15 loaves. And I make this all the time, so I use up that flour fairly quickly. I have to find my half a cup here. There we go. And when you're baking, you want to be exact, so that's why I am double checking that. Okay. And now to the flour, you are going to add your salt. Now rather than regular salt, I prefer the blend from Kinder's. So it's salt, pepper, and garlic. And you're going to put 1 tablespoon of either salt or the blend into your flour. And then I am actually going to include in my flour jalapeno and cheddar. Other options might be cinnamon and raisin, herb and cheddar, garlic and herb. There's a lot of options. And if you got your kit, on the back of the recipe, I did give you some suggestions on what to include. So this is actually a whole jalapeno, seeded and finely chopped, and I'm going to add that into my flour mixture. And then I'm going to add 2 cups of cheese. I like cheddar. You can add whatever you want. And I buy the pre-shredded. If you want to shred it yourself, feel free. Also, you can get this in like thick shreds, which I really like, but I didn't have any of that this time. And then we are going to just give this a little mix. So all that cheese is incorporated in with the flour and the salt. Okay, now we're going to take our water, and you want water that is warm, not hot to the touch, just warm. And I just use regular old tap water. In your kit, you received a packet of yeast. You will need the whole packet. And each packet of yeast actually is 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I buy my yeast in bulk because I do make a lot of bread. So I'm going to put 2, and I just eyeball the 1/4 in there. And then here's a little tip for you. If you want your yeast to get nice and frothy, it likes a little bit of sugar. It's actually like feeding the yeast. So I put about 1/2 teaspoon in there, and then I mix it up with a fork. And I let it sit for about 10 minutes. And it will get nice and frothy. So I will stop this there, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes, and you'll see what my yeast has done. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. So this is what my yeast water combination looks like. See, it's kind of frothy up there. And if you look at the sides, you can kind of see, whoops, you can kind of see that it's kind of bloomed. They call it blooming. So we are going to now add this to our flour mixture. All of it. I dump it all right in there. And then you're going to mix it. Now, one of the reasons I like this recipe is it is no knead. You do not have to knead the bread, and you do not have to get your hands dirty if you do not want to. I don't like the feeling of bread dough on my hands, so I do all the mixing in the bowl. And so you're going to mix this until all of the flour is incorporated. Make sure you scrape the bottom and get that flour that likes to settle down there up and in the bread. And that all the flour is kind of wet from that water. This takes a little bit of work and a little bit of time to get it all incorporated, but it's worth it in the end. So I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video, before you start your bread, that this takes altogether about 3 hours. Between rise time and baking time, about 3 hours. So while I'm mixing this, I did turn on my oven to 250. And the reason that I did that is that I keep my house a little colder. So I turn the oven on and let it warm up, and then I turn it off, which I will do right now. And when my bread is ready to start rising, I put it in the warm oven, and it gives you a really nice rise. If you don't want to do that, you can, or your house is warm, you can leave it on the counter. That is absolutely fine. Or you can put it in your microwave with the door closed. Usually that's warm enough to get a good rise. So there we go. There's what it looks like. And now I'm going to cover it with a dish towel and put it in the oven for 1 hour. So oven off, 1 hour for the rise, or leave it on your counter, put it in your microwave, put it someplace warm. Warm is going to get you the best rise. And then we will be back here in about an hour to see what it looks like. Okay, so it's been about an hour, and so I have taken my bread out, or my dough out of the oven where it was proofing, and this is what it looks like. So it has risen very nicely. So you want it to be about double in size, which is what this is. And now we're going to take our spatula, and we're going to fold the side of the dough in to the middle. So kind of pushing the air out. And you do this about 8 times or all the way around the bowl. Probably depends on the size of your spatula. And I kind of scrape the sides to get the dough off. And then I make sure it's all in the middle. Give it a nice round, make it round on the top. Okay, and so now we're going to let that proof for another half an hour. But what we're going to do in the meantime is we are going to turn our oven to 450. And we are going to put our Dutch oven, if you're using one, into the oven to preheat. In place of a Dutch oven, you could use a roasting pan with a lid. If you have one, I do not recommend glass. Or you can use a cookie sheet and do what's called an open bake. So if you were to do an open bake, you would put the cookie sheet in there to heat up. And then just before you put your bread in to cook or to bake, you would add a pan of ice underneath the cookie sheet. So on the second rack, or the bottom rack, I guess. And the top rack would be where your bread was going to be. So now this is going to proof for half an hour while our Dutch oven heats up in our oven. So I like to put this kind of by the stove because this stays warm. My stove, I have like a vent over here, so it will warm up the bread and it will give it another rise. So I will be back in another half an hour. All right, so it's been about a half an hour, and so I am going to get my bread ready to go in the oven. Again, nice rise. So I'm going to do the same method where I pull it into the middle. Shape it a little bit with my spatula. And then I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can use foil. I did include parchment paper in your kit, so everybody that got a kit should have a piece of parchment paper. And I'm going to turn my dough out onto my parchment paper. And it should come out fairly easily. Oh, I had a little bit of dry flour on there. So I'm just gonna brush that off because it didn't get incorporated into the bread or into the dough. Okay. Now I'm going to, that looks pretty good. Again, you don't have to touch it. Now I'm going to take my Dutch oven out of the oven. You have to be very careful doing this because it is very super hot. And I am going to kind of lift my dough up by the corners like this and plop it in there. Adjust your parchment paper so it's kind of sticking out. And then if you wanted to at this point, you could add a little bit of cheese or cinnamon or salt to the top. I think I'll add some more of this blend, but not too much, just a little bit. Give it a little bit of a crust. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit over the top. And actually, maybe I will put a little bit of cheese on there. Let me go grab some cheese. You could also put some like sliced jalapenos on it if you're doing the jalapeno cheddar. You could put like some chocolate chips on top just to decorate it if you're doing chocolate chip and walnut. Just whatever you like. This bread is very versatile, so you can add in what you like and top it with what you like. Now, a little tip I'm going to give you here, you don't have to do this part, but I like to do it because I think it gives it a nice crust, is I'm going to get 4 or 5 ice cubes. And I'm going to put them behind the paper, between the paper and the pan. And it's going to create steam, which will give the bread a really nice crust. And then I'm going to put my top on. You can see it kind of starting to steam there. I'm going to push it down, give it a nice seal, and then it goes into the oven at 450 for 30 minutes. Set my timer for 30 minutes. And I will see you back here in 30 minutes. Okay, it's been a half an hour, so I am now going to take the lid off of my pot in the oven, and I'll show you what it looks like. Ooh, nice. Okay, here is what it looks like. See that? Looks great. And now we're gonna leave it in for 20 minutes uncovered, 20 to 25 uncovered, and it's gonna brown up. And then I will be back to show you the final results. All right, it's been about 22 minutes. So let's get this bread out of the oven and we'll see how it looks. Oh, this looks delicious. Turn my oven off. Let me get out my cutting board. And I'll give you a great view of the bread. So I take it out of the pot, right on the paper. And there it is in all of its glory. So when you, it'll be hot now, but if you tilt your bread up and give it a knock on the bottom, it should sound hollow. Hear that? Which means it's perfect. So you're going to want to let it cool for probably 30 minutes to an hour. But I'm going to cut right into it so you can see what it looks like. This is beautiful. Came out perfectly. Hear that crust? You can hear it. Yum. That's my favorite part, is the crust. Now this is breaking apart a little bit because I didn't let it cool enough, but check it out here. Ooh, I need my other glove. Oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. That's going to be some good bread tomorrow. All right, well, there you go. I hope your bread turns out as well as mine did. Send me a picture or an email telling me how it went and letting me know what you included in your bread. And good luck. And I should also say thanks for joining me. I hope to see you in May for our jigsaw puzzle contest for Lunch and Learn. That will be May, I believe it's the 4th or 5th. Whatever that first Tuesday is at 12:30. So I will see you then. Have a good couple of months.